Chicago's Mayor Rahm Emanuel recently had an interview with Politico to talk about the current state of affairs here in the United States. And he had some advice for liberals, which is always really interesting considering the fact that anytime he talks about liberals, it seems to be negative. Now, Emanuel is worried. He thinks everyone in Washington is too focused on the crazy around Trump to see what's actually going on and what's not. So I'm gonna get to his specific quotes, but understand that the gist of what he says is about how we spend too much, when I say we, I mean liberals in general, not we as the Young Turks, although we've gotten this criticism before. We spend too much time focusing on Trump and criticizing Trump. We should spend some time focusing on other things. For instance, the middle class and the working class, which is something that liberals do time and time again, and then they get criticized by centrist Democrats for doing so. But anyway.
Okay, before you go on with more quotes. So in that first quote, I was intrigued because if you're progressive, you can make the case, hey, look, we should really focus on help get the wages of the middle class up, focus on their real life issues, and that would be a great case to make. So I was like, did he learn something? Is he going to go in the right direction here? I wouldn't agree to not talking about Trump. That's a weird thing to
He's our president, right? And he's doing something crazy every day. What do? You just ignore it?
Yeah, you can't ignore it. But I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So yeah, we can attack Trump and tell you, hey, you know what? We should have free college education for kids so that we can have a vibrant middle class, $15 minimum wage, so we can have at least people earning a decent enough wage to be able to sustain their families, etc. So is that the direction that Rahm's gonna go? Let's find out.
All right, he says the following: we don't talk about and fight for the middle class like we are. We believe we're for them, but they don't. If they don't hear we're for them, then we got a problem. It's not just for the string of policies. It's also a set of values that respect who they are in their lives. We come off and can come off as a party disdainful of them.
Okay, so in the beginning it sounded fine. Like he's right, the Democratic Party polls worse than the Republican Party, and that is unbelievable in the era of Trump. I mean, he's a deeply unpopular president. Somehow the Democrats are even more unpopular. How the hell did they manage to pull that off? Because they're ignoring the middle class. Again, I'm like, hey, I'm slightly encouraged here, or we're gonna go in the right direction. But then he starts talking about like, it's not about the policies. Yeah, of course it is. That's what affects them. You know, whether they have health care or not is a policy issue. Whether their wages are higher or not higher is a policy issue. He says we have to talk to them in a way that we don't sound disdainful of them. I'm like, here we go. So this is where you reach out to them on social issues. Now you're not deplorable. You're not in the basket of deplorables. You're a wonderful human being who happens to think that the South should have won the Civil War. Okay, but so can you please come towards us anyway? This is the idea of appeasing Republicans and thinking that they'll come to your side, which has never, ever worked for the Democrats in my lifetime.
Right, and later on he talks about how it's okay to support Democrats who are running for office or running for re-election who happen to be against reproductive rights. And I understand that Bernie Sanders has supported a representative who has come out against reproductive rights. But with Bernie Sanders, I believe that it comes from a genuine place of, hey, I'm not gonna agree with this politician on everything, but when it comes to the core values of what it means to be a progressive, this person, follows suit. When it comes to economic justice, this person follows suit. With Rahm Emanuel, though, he has never struck me as a progressive or an individual who's cared about liberals, who's cared about the middle class or the working class. I mean, he's been in some of the most powerful positions imaginable, and what has he done? And even in that statement, you're right, Cenk, he talks about, it's not just about the policies. No, it's 100% about the policies. That's why during this last election, so many people were frustrated by the pandering that we experienced from the candidates. Hillary Clinton being one of them, right? The pandering about the hot sauce in her bag. No, we don't care about the hot sauce in your bag. We care about what you're gonna do for the working class and the middle class.
So, but I want to talk about that Mello endorsement a little bit more because this guy's running in Omaha, Nebraska, and so he doesn't agree with us on pro-choice issues. That's devastating, right? But that's why when the press asks me about, for example, the Just Democrats, that's the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, we say out of the 23 things in our platform, only one is non-negotiable. You're not allowed to be corrupt. You can't take lobbyist money or PAC money, okay? Everything else Like, it depends on where you're running. And I wish you agreed with everything, all 23 items in the platform, but I understand that you're gonna have different positions on guns depending on where you are in the country. I get that, right? So if he was making a case, like I think Bernie Sanders is making that case, if Rahm was making that case, again, I'd be super welcoming to it. But it turns out, no, he's not talking about that. He later says, no, we have to be more centrist. Okay, which means, and if you're not talking about policy and you're not talking about Trump, what's left? What's left is running to the right.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it's funny because the main criticism here was liberals are wasting too much time focusing on Trump. They need to address the middle class. And then for the remainder of the interview, the only thing he talked about was Trump. Let me give you an example. He's attacked Atlanta, he's attacked Philadelphia, he's attacked New York, he's attacked the gangs there, he's attacked Chicago. I noticed he never attacked suburban or rural areas for their opioid crisis. He talks about how to solve those problems. You have a huge opioid crisis in the suburbs, massive opiate heroin crisis. Now they don't get stereotyped or criticized, they get empathy. Okay, so yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we criticize him for too. Because he's the president and he deserves to be criticized, especially when he's doing something wrong. I don't know, I felt like he came off as disingenuous, and it's also really, really interesting to me to hear such a centrist tell liberals how they need to act in order to appeal to people. No, you appeal to people by showing that you actually understand their issues and want to fix those issues.
And you want to fight for those changes. Now, look, you have to understand the context. This is not the first time we've heard of Rahm Emanuel, of course, chief of staff for Obama, was in the Clinton administration. When he was chief of staff for Obama, he famously told a room full of progressives about how they were effing retarded for being liberal, okay? And later in the article, he explains to Politico that he says we have to look to the suburbs and find the moderates. No, but on the policy positions, almost all 23 planks for example, in the Justice Democrats platform, polls at 60% or better. You already have the moderates. You already have the independents if you actually went with the policies that we're talking about. Expanding Social Security, not cutting Social Security, free college education, etc. All of these things, even immigration reform, they all poll at over 60%. The issue isn't getting moderates on our side. The issue is he doesn't want to do any of those things because the Democratic donors don't want him to do those things. So he wants to play identity politics, partly why he mentions the cities there. Of course, he's the mayor of Chicago, which is a city that gets attacked. That's fair, right? And so he doesn't want to talk about policies, even though the policies would get you the moderates that you're looking for, because he's not looking for moderates. He's looking to trick the voters and please the donors. So at the end of the day, it turns out it's the same old Rahm Emanuel doing the same old tricks. And he says, one more quote from him, talking to ourselves and persuading ourselves is not going to be the way to get a majority. In other words, don't fight for progressive positions. Talking to ourselves and persuading ourselves, meaning becoming progressive and fighting for progressive issues, is not the way to go, he explains. He says you have to go get a majority. That is code word for go further right to try to get right-wing voters.
As if the country hasn't gone right enough, right?
Yeah, and so that is a loser strategy, because when you say that you're Republican light, the electorate says, okay, then why don't I vote for the real Republican? You just told me they're right. Okay, then I'll go vote for them and not you. Why would I vote for you after you undermined your own policy positions and told me the other side is right? In fact, you did that so much, I'll even vote for a guy who was polling at 37% on the day of the election. I'll even vote for a guy who's completely incompetent, a complete monster, because you told me that you don't believe in your own positions and I should vote Republican. So I did. And Rahm Emanuel hasn't learned a thing. Same old strategy from the same old corporate Democrats.
Corporate media is awesome.
Wrong.
Independent media is the way to go.
Believe me.
Support independent media right now. Become a Young Turks member. TYTnetwork.com/join.